The second reason is I am a very even-tempered personality. I'm always pissed off. So when I get a little emphatic today, just, hey, that's just the way he is. Just let him go off somewhere and blow off steam. So the third reason I am the wrong person to give this presentation is this presentation is exactly 102 years old that should have been given back then. And it should have been given by a doggone attorney, and he should have had the board members of our favorite corporation, the Montana Power Corporation, down in the defendant's seats, and someone should have gone to jail. But I'll get more into that as we're going along. First of all, let's see if I can figure out highfalutin technology. Introduction, we've already covered that. Talk a little bit about our sources. We all have both the the present and the curse, or the gift and the curse of history is a lot of times our oral sources. And honestly, it's with all sources. Some sources are better than others. I have been doing stuff on the Wise River flood, or I will pronounce it as the Pettengill flood, since 1976. And I've interviewed, more or less badly, a lot of people. Of the people that I've interviewed, only 4 would count as decent sources because they were primary sources. They were there on the day of. We had Louise Jones, that was Ed Harvey's daughter. Had Fred Miller, Dana's dad. My grandmother, Evelyn, at the time Evelyn McKenzie, she's later on Evelyn Stanchfield, and Gil Dodson. Needless to say, by the time I got to interview them, they were a little older. More importantly, they were children at the time of the event. And so, you take it for what it's worth. Newspapers, in fact, that's where I just was. I was going through the Butte newspapers again, like I was telling Ty. Every time I go in there, I see stuff that I should have put in here, but I forgot to. So bear with me. Photographs, that's the fun part about this presentation. Court records, modern sources. I have them, what I have, on the table back there, or on the cabinet back there. We have the history of the Montana Power Company. Don't know if that's still in print or available. I got it at the Montana History, the Historical Society. We have a scientific study, and just because it's got a lot of big words, forgive me. Using historic aerial photography and paleohydrologic techniques to assess long-term ecological response to 2 Montana dam removals, one of which is the Pettengill Dam. Finally, and I think that a good deal of you have this is a report, the Pettengill Dam failures in Wise River and Big Hole River flood of 1927. I know of no copy of this that has the author, and I know of no copy of this that has the bibliography. If one of you out here has the author or bibliography with this report, please let me know. Get up with me after the presentation. I will tell you, this presentation today is very much a revisionist presentation. If you are dealing with your knowledge from this, or with the Montana Standard story from 1977, which is hung up in the Wise River Club right now, if that is your knowledge, I will tell you that you're about 90% wrong. Dems want to beat me up after this, just get in line. Modern sources, Schmitz et al., Google Earth, a lot of different folks. On that note, please let me give out a big shout of thanks. Ty and the Butte Archives for inviting me to speak before you all. Big Hole Historical Association, with particular note to Alta and Tim Fay. My wife for having to put up with me, always. I want to end my thank yous. First of all, Sandy Schonsberg and Chief. Those two, they had the photo albums. There's a couple pictures up here that, thanks to them, and it gives us a lot of brand new evidence, stuff to consider, new stuff. And finally, last but not least, a man who is not here, but we should all either thank him or condemn him because it got me up here yapping to y'all. Brian Lovell, and you'll see he's my photo editor, he's the drone operator, he's the modern photographer, great guy. So later on, if Brian can look up the link, Brian, demand. All right. The agenda will be before the flood, and after the flood, we'll end up with conclusions and questions. We're going to move quickly through 3, as quick as I can. 4, to a degree. 5, I'm going to spend a little more time on, because that's where the controversy will start. I think, okay, with this presentation, I want to answer 3 historical questions that I've always wondered about. And I'm not going to say they'll be solved by the end of it, but let's just hope that we have a better guide. The first issue is why the dam blew in the first place. That's, it's kind of like, why have a presentation on a flood that never happened? All right, we know that. That's so. Question number 1, why did the dam fail? Question number 2, 3 of the official 4 fatalities were Tracy, Birdie, Truman, and Billy Brennig. They had been Tracy's stepson, Birdie's son. They were washed away in the flood. The 2 girls, Betty and Esther, survived. Any relatives here? All right, that'd be another thing. If anybody knows any of the prodigy of either Esther or Betty, let's get in touch with them. The 2 girls survived. There has been, when I grew up, and this is about sources, there was controversy as to where they were actually at when the flood got them and how the flood got them. So that was the second mystery. The third mystery we will call, if you're all familiar with Jane Austen's Sense and Sensibility, cut and culpability, which I'll explain more when we get to the after the flood. All righty, before the flood. We must remember that in the 1890s, the electric industry was very much a startup industry. It was much like the internet industry of the 1990s. You had a lot of different entities struggling to survive, struggling to get a start on it. One of those was the very first Montana Power Company. It was formed in response to a request by Butte General Electric. And if you'll remember, there were 2 national suppliers of electric equipment. There's Westinghouse and General Electric, which was Edison. Butte General Electric wanted a company formed that would put in the infrastructure, use General Electric equipment to electrify Butte and the mines and surrounding environment. The Montana Power Company was formed, as is usual, with too little capital to get done what they wanted to do. The chief engineer really wanted to use hydroelectric power instead of the in-town coal-fired steam plants. He was enamored with putting in a dam at the bottom of the canyon at Divide for hydroelectric energy, and it was recognized that the flow of the Big Hole would not support a full-time hydroelectric dam. So they would need to build a holding dam somewhere upstream so that they could sustain flows in off-flow months. Now, as one would expect, when the criteria is build it as cheap as you can, you're going to have some problems. By 1890, they started construction in the fall of 1897. just finished construction up in 1898 for the water to rise up and wash the first dam out in Divide. It did not only wash the first dam out in Divide, it also washed the first dam out up in Pettengill. The dam itself was timber log construction filled with stone and faced with 2-inch plank. Now, the first time that I saw this photo, and it's a little Kodak Brownie photo, we could not notice this right here. This is the first dam. And you'll notice that it curves. It's a little bit upstream of where the current, what's left of the current dam is. It's upstream and it curves a lot further over to that south bank. Notice right here, that is where the first Pettengill Dam failed. And this is Sandy Schonsberg's relative. So is this a Hanson Sandy or?
Right.
Yeah. We'll call her Mrs. Hanson for sake of the. You'll notice that Mrs. Hanson has somewhat of a grin on her face because look what they tried to do, George. Good photo. And you can take a look. The bottom looks nothing like that today. So the first Pettengill Dam fails in 1898. So does the Montana Power Company. They kick the chief engineer out, bring another guy in, and they redo the dams. They keep the same construction of the Pettengill Dam, timber and crib, sloping outwards, roughly a 35-degree pitch, 2-inch plank, 2 layers of 2-inch plank. They are they're 8x8 supporting beams for the timber crib construction with 4x4s driven into the ground to hold the construction in place. Here is construction on the second Pettengill Dam. Now, one of our secondary sources, the History of the Montana Power Company, lists the main pipe as being 42 inches in diameter to sustain the flow of the river. If you know anything about pipe turbulence, et cetera, you will note that that is not near enough pipage for the flow. I do not believe that source is correct. I believe that right here, we're putting in a couple different pipes, probably they're 42 inches, but there's probably several different ones. That pipe that's at the dam today is right about where this structure is. And I believe that was what they could have to regulate flow, high water, low water. But please note, it's too high to sustain regular flow, except when the reservoir is really high. So that's why I think that my source is wrong. Here's a cabin. This is important later on because I believe this is the cabin that Benny Osborne was living in at the time of the flood. We can kind of note the planks coming across here like that. It'd be a great place for an archaeological survey. Really, really would be great if there's anybody here with a double ton of money. All right. This is an important photo because by 1916, Black Rock Electricity, John D. Ryan of Amalgamated Copper fame, they are, and thanks to improvements in technology, what is happening is the Big Hole Dam is obsolete. Water flow is not enough. You have that little problem of winter, and it doesn't produce very much energy. About half the year, they actually have to swap it and transmit power back to the people that had contracted power along that line. So, in 1916, they abandoned the Wise River Dam. The caretaker, who was Benny Osborne's father, they quit paying him, and I don't know where he went, but Benny Osborne just assumed squatters' rights at the cabin at the dam. Sometimes you'll hear the cabin below the dam. I can't say for certain whether the cabin was below the dam or the cabin was just where I showed you. What will happen in a timber crib dam that's faced with plank when it's not maintained is the plank will rot. It will allow water to seep through. The water will seep through into the timber cribs and it will wash all of your fines out, and you will start having collapsing of your fill, plus you will start having accelerated rot of your timber crib structure. Today, if you go up there to the dam, when you're walking out to where the dam blew, there is a recession there. You'll walk across this little dip in the ground, about that much. That's an example of the dam undercutting and giving away without the whole dam blowing. It was noted through the years that there were springs starting to appear at the bottom of the dam. Those aren't natural springs, that's water subbing through the dam. To an oral source. Let's see what my next picture is here. Okay, this is a great drone shot of the reservoir area. I will talk, now my grandmother, when she was a little girl, she would go up and play with Benny Osborne's daughter at the cabin on the reservoir. Even back then, this was between when my grandmother was 6 to when she was 9, so we're talking 1918 to 1921. Benny told them, do not play on the dam, it's not safe. So you're roughly looking, if Schmitz et al., if their information agrees with my information, 3.2 kilometers long by 800 meters wide. For those of us that struggle with the metric, 1.5 miles long by 900, pretty near 1,000 yards wide. At the height, well, it doesn't say at the height. What it says is that the reservoir held 12.8 million cubic meters of water. Again, those of you that struggle with the metric system, that's just about 500,000 cubic feet of water. So that's the amount of water they estimate was in the reservoir at the time that it blew. This is a great shot. These are some of the Hansen family. They're swimming in the reservoir. To my knowledge, this is the only picture of the reservoir that we still have with us. Again, I holler for information. For someone, if you folks out there have some other pictures of the Pettengill Reservoir in place, by all means share it, because there's talk that sometime we might do a coffee table book about it. But anyway around it, let's not let that information disappear. This is a shot modern day. We've superimposed the old picture there. We used the ridge, Brian Lovell did, I should say. That's Brian's hand, by the way. But notice that the ridge matches right there. We also have the cliffs. So what we can see from this picture is that the water is roughly 2 meters or 7 feet more than the current sediment bed. Alrighty, I believe, yes, alrighty. Again, this is a shot, a great shot. It's a great shot because I can tell you exactly when this shot was taken. This shot was taken May 17th, 1921. It's from a pamphlet called Boston, Montana, Through the Eyes of the Camera, and in the notes that O.O. Heater is sending back to William Allen. He's sending it back that the camera crew is up above Wise River taking shots today. And that's dated there. So, this is Wise River before the flood. Whoops. Wrong button. That's what happens with us technologically challenged. We have the Wise River Bar. The Wise River Post Office is behind it. These are all structures building for the Boston and Montana, the Montana Southern Railroad. This is the railroad headquarters. This building right here, they referred to as the commissary. You can see the road more or less goes right where Highway 43 does now, but please notice it's quite a bit lower lower in elevation than the current highway is. Up here, we still have a whole lot of willows and cottonwoods and stuff, so that'll be important, I believe, in the survival of the Wise River Bar, well, hotel, sorry. So this sets us up. This is before the flood. 1927, huge, huge snowfall year. Cool spring. There is a report in the Butte Miner a week before that the Beaverhead River is starting to flood because of a lot of rain, but the snow has not begun to melt. So between June 7th and June 14th, it warms up a bunch, and there is a lot of rain. One newspaper account talks of a freakish downpour of 15 inches in half an hour. I doubt it. I doubt it because that report comes from the Anaconda Standard, and we will get into why we must take. Well, the Anaconda Standard, boys and girls, kids and infants, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, the Anaconda Standard is the tool of the company, Faith and Bigorra, be chappers, be chappers. And we will get stories from them. Later on, we're going to see it, that nobody else has. So either they were bang-up reporters or they was covering up something that stunk. So that report of the cloudburst, but heavy rainfall is reported in the 4 newspapers I've studied: Anaconda Standard, Butte Daily Miner, Daily Post, Dillon Tribune, and a little bit from the Examiner. So this sets us up again. Heavy rainfall on top of snow. This makes for what is called, in modern hydrology, a rain on snow event. Wow. Took a degree to get to there. I'm sorry, I apologize. Mark Schaefer, I don't see him in the room. He's my hydrologist. He's about 3 inches taller than me. He's a lot bigger than me. He beat the living hell out of me. So anyway. Okay, we've already talked about what's going on right before the flood. This is right on the edge of where the dam blew. Again, 14 June 1927, a week before Tom Hansen, who had a cabin up in Pettengill, according to the newspaper reports, but the newspaper reports could have gotten his name wrong. Benny Osborne told Tom Hansen not to go up to his cabin because water was beginning to run out the notch. Which, okay, what is the notch? I'm going to get to that in a second too. But it is my supposition that in the month of June, Benny Osborne, who the company probably regarded him as the little boy who cried wolf, I think he did try to get a hold of some people and said, hey, y'all got problems coming around? And they were, oh yeah, it's that old trapper who drinks a lot and he's up wiser, shut up. 0600, well, after 0600, for some reason, it's sticking in my head hard time of 0636, June 14th. There was a former Marine by the name of, notice I said former Marine and not ex-Marine for all of you Corps people out there. I was Army. He was a former Marine who'd been in World War I. And that's where we get the hard time. 0636, he said, it sounded like an explosion. It was louder than any cannon I ever heard on the Western Front. So there is a great big boom. By the way, real fast, this is the notch. This is the spillway. You'll note where we're taking this picture from is down at what would have been the reservoir level at the time. That notch is about 7 feet less than this bank right here, which is the bank of the dam. If you go up to the dam now, when you're just about out to the dam, you'll notice you're driving through what looks to be kind of a dried up canal. That's the notch. It's the spillway. When water's running through there, think about how much higher the water is than that picture with the 3 girls swimming in it. Again, we hear that big loud explosion. And this is where my Army Training Battle Damage Assessment, Bomb Damage Assessment, this is how Bureau of Reclamation might see it entirely different. But what happens, it's almost as if you place an explosive charge right at the base of the dam. Because when it blows, this is a pile of detritus. It literally blows the dam backwards about 100 feet. All in one chunk. If it was a standard dam washout where it's going from the top down, you would see an alluvial fan here, you would see an alluvial fan here, and the stream would continue straight. As it is with the large movement of rock cribbing and rock and everything else, what we get is the channel then changes to around it. And also notice that to an effect, the reservoir is still in place because notice how much higher it is right here than down here. But catastrophic failure. And it doesn't take minutes, it's all at once. This is a ground level view of the sediment pile. We're standing on the other side of the bank. There's Finley, Brian's boy. We're standing on the other side of the bank. The other side of the bank is about 8 feet taller than the stream bed. So you can see that that is roughly 25 feet in height. So at 25 feet in height, it's a good 75 feet, I would say. Long. That's one chunk of material that is blown backwards in one sudden instant. This is the girl who took the next few shots. Again, I've got her included in this because we have exact provenance of when she took the pictures you're about to see. Some of them, the first 2 aren't that good, but I just want to illustrate with it. When the dam blows, there's a massive outrush of water. Roughly speaking, about, and again, this is Schmitz, and I kind of disagree. I think the flow level's quite a bit higher, but these guys are scientists. They're estimating about 3,200 cubic feet per second. So what's going to happen is that water is going to roar down and it's going to hit the Wise River, which is already flooding. I mean, it's already at flood level. It's going to hit with such force that the Wise River is going to back up. Once the pressure equalizes, then the Wise River will start coming down too. And in effect now we have a 2-river flood. Then it will get down to where the Wise River meets the Big Hole, and we are going to have the same effect. I can't tell you as to how long it was before the Wise River draining out. With the Big Hole, I can say the Big Hole did not start draining down until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So that's how long the water pressure from the Wise River Pettengill flood was greater than the flow of the Big Hole. Easily over 6,000 cubic feet per second. Okay, here we have the picture. It's about 10 o'clock in the morning. The water is still across the entire valley, right up above Eagle Rock. Carolyn Wisney was supposed to meet her ride down at Wise River. She needed to get down there, so she was in a hurry. That's why we have the time. This is a view. Again, we've got to do some cleanup on it. These are the people that are trying to see if they can somehow get around here. Eventually, they had to get across to the other side and go around where the road actually was. If this was a good cleared up picture, there's all pieces of the Montana Southern Railroad up against it. Okay, let's go to a mystery about the Truman family. Chris Norton, when he hears that big boom, he was living up above the flood valley. So he left his wife and kid there, and he headed down in an old Model T truck just as fast as he could. As he was running down the valley in his truck, he was shooting his pistol in the air, and he was yelling to everybody. Somehow about 7 o'clock in the morning, Tracy, who was living on the Young homestead with his family, heard that the dam had broken. Hurriedly, he got his family up and out of bed. The kids were still asleep. He has to get them up. He was trying to get them into the automobile. For those of you that grew up as I did, told that his cabin was at the mouth of Addison Creek, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense because if I was living at the bottom of Addison Creek, I'm just going to go up Addison Creek, and I'm going to be out. I'm not going to have to go across where the flood's going to go. If I go just a little ways up, no worries. In truth, he was living at the Young place. This is the plat of the Young homestead. Thank you to Tim Fay. Here's a close-up of it. Notice right here we have a slough that runs on the other side. Here's the Wise River. Here's a slough. If they were on the bridge, and I say if because accounts differ, and the girls gave different accounts. They said different things at different times. So what we have happen, Tracy gets word that the flood has broke. He gets his family out of bed. The very first account from the girls are, Dad got us out of bed. He went to get Mom and Billy. The water hit down. Mom and Dad went under. Billy, last we saw, he was on top of the flood water and then went under. Now that's going to leave a scar. Later on, they said they were all in the car and they were trying to get across a bridge, and Tracy got out to see if it was safe. Wife got out to get Tracy back into the car. Billy just jumped out of the car and down it went. I tend to trust the first report more. I think that they were all just scrambling to get out of that house. The girls got out of the house. The floodwater suddenly upon them. Tracy yells, "Jump, girls, jump." It was too late. The car is swept away. As the car's being swept away, Tracy, Birdie, and Billy are washed away. The car is carried downstream and is deposited up on the bank where Walter Jones finds them a little bit later on, a couple hours after the fact.
Hey Matt, can you clarify where this is in relation to?
We're going to get to it.
Thank you, sorry.
Thank you, Sierra. But yes, thank you for preluding the next slide. This is a modern view of where the Young homestead was. It's a little bit above, well, in fact, see where Mark Wilcox's house is right there? So this puts it into relation of where the Young homestead was at the time. This also shows you, and keep in mind, folks, that the water level, the Wise River bed is now 6 feet lower after the flood than it was at the time of the flood. The flood scoured out the bed that much. So note right in here, note all the scarring, and you can see there's an ancient trace of the slough. It's still a little green, but see all the scarring that we have from debris right here, and then right about here are the only signs I can see, thanks to my one archaeological class back in college. But we're good on to that, or where buildings might have been. This is where I think the barn was. Here's the barn on the plat. And the reason I think so is because this is an even three-sided cut with a debris field on the downriver side. So I think the flood lifted that up and just carried it off. Here's the next place where a structure might have been, and I think this was the ice house. This will remove all doubt why Tracy needed to get the hell out of Dodge. That family needed to get out of there or they were going to be swept away by a flood. What's the punchline? Guess what happened? All righty, water continues down. Chris Norton gets, the first guy he goes to is Ed Harvey. Ed Harvey's running the post office, as the newspaper accounts report. Was he running the post office in 1927? Ed Harvey?
Yes.
Okay, all right. He was also running the store. The store was right about here. This picture, there's some debris if you're taking a look at just close up. And there was a safe in the store, and it stayed there. The water washed everything else away. There was a brand new bridge across Wise River. Right there, you can see that the water's kind of cutting underneath it before it goes away. Charlie Ferguson was living in a house cabin right about here. He gets washed away. Chris Norton tried to wake him up, couldn't get him woke up, and the water was coming down, and you know, there's so much heroism a guy can do. Ed Harvey was on the phone trying to call as many people as he could. That secondary source, he was trying to save merchandise. Give him a credit. Ed Harvey was a hero on that day. Let's give him credit where credit was due. He almost got washed away. His son came and saved him and, got him out of there. They left one guy in the hotel just because they didn't know he was there, Tommy Flynn. There'd been a rodeo there that weekend. No one knew that Tommy Flynn had gone up into the hotel just to crash. So they left him there. So Tommy Flynn, there's a window right up here, he got to watch the whole flood come down, watch the porch collapse, watch the water go around the porch, and then he got to clean his underwear. Notice the crowd of people over here? I would expect, Dana and George and Fred are in that crew? Very likely could be. I think that's kind of a neat thing right there. Okay, this is 7:45 on Tuesday, June 14th, 1927. Vida Gill took this picture, by the way. And so once again, it's great. We've got Providence. Water continues down. By now, our 4 official fatalities are dead. Water continues down to the big hole. Let me go to my official notes because I need to see some names. Sam Shepard drove down to Dewey and did the Paul Revere there. Roscoe Hand and Lowell Poole, I think I've got it right, alerted the people at the pump station and Divide. They also called down to the Avon Railroad Depot and had them stop the train. And if they wouldn't have, that train would have been in Maiden Rock about the time that the flood hit there. That would have been the end of all of the people on that train. My grandmother was living, her dad was Ernest McKenzie. They were living just downstream from the Divide Dam. They knew they had to get out of there. As they were going away, a lady, and what my grandmother related was she could barely speak English. My grandmother thought she was Swedish. She was frantic because her family was on the other side of the river. Dad tried to hold her back. She broke free and ran. So the official fatalities 4, record keeping what it was back then, who knows? Water continues down. This is a great photo. This is once again Carolyn Wisney. her ride, she was supposed to meet him between 3 and 4 in the afternoon. Ride didn't make it. But this is, she finally got down there, and she got down there just in time, which gives us provenance. This is afternoon of 14 June. You can see some people gathered on the other side, and the water, the flood water has receded a bunch, but there's still quite a bit of water running across the flats. Here's where Smart Creek is now. We can see the water's still tumbling over debris. We hope that Tommy Flynn's gotten out of that window. And we conclude with the activity of the flood at the Divide Dam, because if I continued on, well, we'd be here a while. Safe to say that Twin Bridges was flooded, Jefferson Island downstream was flooded. They noted floodwaters at Hauser and Hebgen Dam that made company officials concerned. All right, now we're moving on to the fun part. After the flood, if you are one of the board of directors of a company that has neglected a dam for more than 10 years, and you have also not paid any attention to anybody warning you about it, all of a sudden you experience what is modern terminology, modern urban slang, a clong. A clong, ladies and gentlemen, is when you suffer a sudden rush of shit to your heart. At this point in time, this is where I have fun throwing a ghost of a company under the bus. And considering the Touch America fiasco, you know, like I've told people 30 years ago, I probably couldn't have gotten away with this. Little backstory on this. So in 1976, I did my